Hello, people. Hello. Once again, welcome to the Kwedu Report. My name is Harry. Now, the Kwedu Report is a program that is brought to you by Harrycom Media. In this program, we dive and delve into all the most topical headline stories from around the globe, where we try to give you some commentary as well as give you some analysis where we can. But of course, we always want to hear your opinions because they do matter. Well, a lot has been happening of the globe, and we've got a mixed bag. Sit down and relax. As we begin, I just want to say to you, remember to share the link. You can also like, follow the Kwedu Report on Kwedu Classics, that is on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on X. We go straight into our first story. Like I said to you, today we've got a mixed bag of stories and headlines from around the globe. Now, we begin in Belgium, and a Belgian ex-diplomat, he has been ordered to stand trial for the 1961 murder of Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba. Now, a court in Brussels, Belgium, has ordered 93-year-old Etienne David Donon, a former Belgian diplomat and European Commission Vice President, to stand trial for his alleged role in the 1961 murder and assassination of Lumumba. Was a Belgium. Now, David Don is accused of war crimes, including unlawful detention, transfer, and degrading treatment of Lumumba and his allies. Now, the case was brought by Lumumba's family, and it marks a significant step towards accountability for Belgium's colonial past. Just to add there, Lumumba was ousted from power and killed in January 1961, just months after Congo gained her independence from Belgium. Now, we stay with a story related to Africa, from Africa, in fact, to be more precise. We go to Morocco, where Morocco has been crowned the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations champions after Senegal were stripped of their title due to a walkout in the final match. A very controversial decision here handed out by the Confederation of African Football, which has decided or ruled that Senegal forfeit their match on a 3-0 scoreline being given to Morocco, who were hosting the African Cup of Nations. This particular decision overturns the original 1-0 win for Senegal in extra time, in the actual match. I don't know. What is your opinion? The controversy here began after a 14-minute delay was forced by a Senegalese player walk off. Then the match is to resume after that. What do you think? Do you think football matches should be decided in the boardroom or on the field of play? Personally, what I think is football matches should be decided on the field of play. It takes away all the excitement when you go to the boardroom to decide a match which was played and finalized in regulation time. I don't know what you think in such circumstances, especially in a match like this one. More than 2 months after the match was concluded, then now we see the match being given to Morocco. We go to the US and we have a look at an issue that has been quite topical, at least in the past month, the issue of the Iran war. Now, US counterterrorism chief resigns over Iran war. Right. We have a gentleman here who was director of the National Counterterrorism Center in the Trump administration. He has resigned, saying he cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war with Iran. This is a very severe blow to Donald Trump, since Joy Kent is someone who was specifically appointed by Donald Trump. He is a Trump appointee. So when he resigns, saying he doesn't agree with the Iran war, it's a significant blow to Donald Trump, who has been battling to convince the American public, citizens, to convince them that he is fighting a just war in Iran, a very unpopular war, really, indeed, with American citizens, with less than 30% of Americans supporting the war. I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives, Kent wrote. I pray that you reflect upon what we are doing in Iran, who we are doing it for. The time for the bold action is now. So Kent added, just to read again something here from Kent, he stated that Iran posed no imminent threat to the US. And it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Kent, a Gold Star husband who lost his wife in a war, expressing concern about human and economic costs of continued engagement in the war. As I said earlier on, a significant blow there to Donald Trump as he continues to battle with the war in Iran, and also continuing to battle to convince Americans that this is a just war which he is fighting in Iran. Now, we come back to Australia. In case you are just joining us, we are coming to you live from our main studios here in Sydney, Australia. This is the Kwedu Report, a program brought to you by Harrycom Media. You can follow the Kwedu Report on Kwedu Classics on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, X. You can also read all the latest news about us on our website on harrycommedia.com. Now, back to Australia, where we have had an assurance on the at least short to medium continuous supply of fuel, as oil tankers never stopped coming to Australia amid Middle East crisis. Oil tankers continue to arrive in Australia as expected, with the industry edging calm despite uncertainty month. Now, Energy Minister Chris Bowen said guaranteed for at least the next month, with 18 fuel tankers arriving last week and 33 en route. There we go. The Energy Minister Chris Brown edging calm within the Australian society, saying supplies are guaranteed beyond the next month. So that is the situation there. The tankers have never stopped coming. Also, NRMA spokesperson Peter Corey said, emphasizing that supply has continued even during the darker periods in history. Now, we stay in Australia, again talking about the Iran war. I'm sure this has affected essentially everyone in almost every corner of the globe. So this is quite a topical issue about today. Australian base in the United Arab Emirates is reportedly been hit by an Iran, and with no injuries reported at the moment. Now, an Iranian projectile struck Al-Minhad Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, causing minor damage to Australian medical and accommodation facilities. Now, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed no Australians were injured, and everyone is absolutely safe at this point in time. Now, of course, Australia did send some defensive reinforcements to the United Arab Emirates, with the Australian government emphasizing that Australia is going there purely and basically for defensive purposes, to help defend Australian society, as well as helping defend Australian allies. Now, still staying on the war in Iran, we have here the Iranian regime has continued to retaliate against the Israeli with cluster warheads in retaliation for the killing of security chief Ali Larijani, who was assassinated yesterday, that is Tuesday, the 17th of March. Now, Iran launched a retaliatory attack on Tel Aviv using missiles carrying cluster warheads in response to Israel's assassination of security chief Ali Larijani. The attack killed 2 people in a densely populated. Now, bringing the total number of Israelis confirmed dead in the war to 14. Iran's foreign minister, meanwhile, Abbas Araghchi, stated that the killing of Larijani and other officials would not hinder Iran's operations, saying the death of officials would not disrupt governance and the state would continue to function. That's Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi there. Of the conflict between US and Iran. Basically, the survey gives the idea that most Australians in the US-Iran conflict. So, as I said, 61% of Australians want to stay out of the conflict between the US and Iran, with only 13% supporting direct involvement. Now, opposition to providing military support to the US stands at 48%, while 24% support it. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, as we said earlier on, has maintained Australia's stance, explicitly stating that they won't engage in offensive actions or operations against Iran or deploy any ground troops, but will essentially focus on defensive measures instead. Now, of course, this conflict directly impacts Australians, with reports of personnel of Australian personnel on some US submarines operating in the region. So concerns about the war's impact on the cost of living and national security are also high in Australia, with 90% of Australians reportedly worried. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Penny Wong emphasized Australia's defensive role again, reinforcing what the Prime Minister had said. According to Wong, Australia is not central to the issues in the Middle East. We didn't participate in those strikes, and we wouldn't participate in the future. That's according to Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, emphasizing Australia's direct involvement in the war against Iran in the Middle East. Where are you joining us from? You may be joining us from the US. I know we have got some followers, very good people there. We also have very good people our regular followers admire from the US there. We have a lot of people in the UK, from Canada. We have our followers as well in Ireland, in the UK, in Germany, from Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. Continue to share the link, share with friends, and also follow and like our page. Turn off the notification button so that you don't miss any episode of the Kwedu Report. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, the word Kwedu is a Shona word that means hours. It's a vernacular word that means hours. So, literally translated, the program is our report. So, that's what it means by Kwedu. Now, we proceed with our next story on the Kwedu Report tonight. If you are just joining us, my name is Harry. I am your host as usual. US gas prices continue to soar despite the US being a top oil producer amid the Iran conflict. Now, someone may ask, but how does it happen that even in the US, a country which is actually the top or the number one gas or oil producer in the world, why are prices continuing to go up? Now, this is the reason, according to the Financial Times. The US is experiencing a surge in gas prices, with the national average reaching $3.79 a gallon, up from $2.92 a month ago, despite being the world's largest producer. Now, this is because, according to the Financial Times, the US exports much of its oil and imports other types, making it vulnerable to global price fluctuations. Once you export some of your products and import some, obviously, if there is a shock in the market, you are bound to be affected. You are bound to be affected. The global market sets the price. Yes. The provenance of the oil we are filling out gas tanks with doesn't matter. That's according to Bernard Yaros, lead US economist at Oxford Economics. The conflict in Iran has disrupted global oil supplies, causing prices to rise. US refineries are optimized for heavy crude oil, but most domestically produced oil is light crude, making it harder to meet demand. Now, as a result, this has led to increased costs for fuel, including jet fuel, causing airlines to raise fares. If the price of oil goes up, the price of everything goes up, said Ernest Moniz, former US Energy Secretary. So, even Americans there, they can feel the effects of the Iran war right on their doorstep. Now, still on the Iran war, I'm sure, as you might appreciate, stories on the Iran war, they obviously and predictably dominate the headlines that we have here on a daily basis, at least until a time when the war ends. We don't know. No one knows. Even the US president who started the war with his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu, they do not know when the war will end. Now, we look again here at some of the effects of the war. We now go to Ukraine, where the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, has said Ukraine faces missile shortage as Middle East war redirects global resources. We all know that the Ukraine has been fighting the invasion by Russia for more than 4 years now. Now, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, has said and warned that Ukraine will face a shortage of missiles used to fight Russia due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. In an exclusive interview with the BBC, Zelensky stated that Russia's Vladimir Putin is benefiting from the situation as it increases energy prices and depletes US reserves, ultimately which now recently, because of the global impact of the war on the oil reserves and supply in the world, the US lifted temporarily oil exports from Russia, and Russia started exporting oil to countries like India. Now, it's reported, some economists have said, because the prices of oil have gone up, Russia is significantly benefiting financially to the tune of more than at least $140 million daily, in addition to what they have been getting. So Zelensky expressed concern that the war in Iran would lead to a deficit of Patriot missiles, which are crucial for Ukraine's defense against Russian attacks. He also noted that the US produces only 60 to 65 missiles per month, and the recent conflict in the Middle East has already used up to 803 missiles in just one day. Let's read out what Zelensky said here. To quote him, in addition to the energy prices, it means the depletion of US reserves and the depletion of air defense manufacturers. So we depletion of resources. So that's a multiplier effect there of the Iran war, having an impact on the state of Ukraine. We want to hear your opinions on this war here, which has been going on for more than 3 weeks now. What do you think is the best way to end this war? What is your opinion? What kind of world order do you advocate for? Do you think it is a good thing that big powers who have got mighty weapons, very powerful nations, should just, whenever they think like or feel like, invade or attack any country that they think of, as we see in this case? Now, we have already done this one, that most Australians do not want this war, do not want to be directly involved in this Iran-Israeli-US war. Now, we go to another story now on Donald Trump, as he lashes out at Keir Starmer, that is the British Prime Minister, and expressing his disappointment with him over the Iran war. Now, Donald Trump has launched another attack on the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer branding him disappointing, saying he is no Winston Churchill. Of course, these words about Keir Starmer. Soon after he launched the invasion of Iran, he reached out to Starmer to join in the war, a request which Starmer chemically turned down, and Trump was disappointed with that. Now, the US president has expressed frustration generally with European leaders who have refused to help with the Iran war, particularly with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, as we know, around 20% of the world's oil supplies, they pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which the Iranian government is now weaponizing, restricting the use of the Strait of Hormuz only to nations that are friendly to the Iranians. Now, Trump has claimed that the attacks on Iran have obliterated Iran's defensive capabilities or offensive capabilities, but still the Strait of Hormuz is not safe to operate, and he is now calling upon his European allies, especially in NATO, including China, surprisingly, to help him open the Strait of Hormuz. Now, as we all know now, this is public knowledge that all his allies, including France, Germany, have rejected Trump's request or demand for help, with the French president Emmanuel Macron saying they won't participate in the operations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. See, of course, Macron said this is not our war. Right. So Trump responded by saying he will be out very soon. EU foreign policy chief, okay, that's Trump referring to Emmanuel Macron. He's saying he'll be out very soon. And meanwhile, EU foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas urged de-escalation, saying the problem with wars is that it's easier to start than to stop them. Of course, at the end of the a video, show you a video of the German defense minister saying what he thinks about Trump's request to help in the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. We go to the UK, where we have a huge story there, where there has been an outbreak of meningitis with 2 people reportedly dead in an unprecedented spread and outbreak of meningitis. Now, the disease has broken out in southeast England, killing 2 people and infecting at least 15 people, with most cases linked to a Canterbury nightclub popular with University of Kent students. Health authorities are working to contain the spread, distributing antibiotics and launching a targeted vaccination program. This is an unprecedented outbreak. That's according to Wes Streeting, Britain's health secretary. It is also a developing situation. The UK Health Security Agency, who visited the nightclub on March 5 to 7 to receive antibiotics. That's a very concerning health scare there in the UK. Now, another story here on the Iran war. Gulf states lose 15 billion in energy revenues. Now, according to the Financial Times, again, the Gulf oil producers have lost an estimated $15.1 billion in energy revenues since the start of the US-Israeli strikes. with millions of barrels of crude trapped by the near shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. 15.1 billion that has been lost in oil and energy revenue since the start of the war. This is just for the Gulf oil. We don't know the ripple effects of this war on other countries. This is a significant blow to Gulf states heavily relying on commodity sales to fund their government, says Florian Grunberger of Kepler, Saudi Arabia. The largest oil exporter has lost out the most, missing out on 4.5 billion since the war started. Right. Those are some of the ripple effects of the war in Iran. Now we go again to overseas to Zimbabwe, where a recently pardoned convict has gone back to jail after committing another crime. He was arrested for vehicle theft and house break-ins. Now, a 20-year-old man, Benjamin Meningitis, has been arrested in Morocco for allegedly stealing a vehicle and breaking into houses just 14 days after presidential amnesty. Meningitis was detected in Morocco's business center on Monday afternoon following a high-speed chase. He had been released from Maronera prison on March 2, 2026 after serving time for 6 counts of unlawful entry and theft. So those are reports there from Zimbabwe. Now, in Zimbabwe, very topical issues is the process underway at the moment where the government seeks to amend the constitution that will see the term of the president being increased, term also being increased from the current 5 to 7, and also that also applies to councillors. Now, a lot of opposition figures have come out against the move, fiercely opposing the move. Now, we have here opposition leader Jameson Timber, who has unveiled what he calls a 1 million voices for the Constitution campaign against Amendment Bill number 3. Jameson Timber of the Defend the Constitution platform, DCP, he has launched a nationwide campaign that he calls 1 million voices for the Constitution, aiming to gather 1 million signatures against the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. This initiative, according to him, seeks to mobilize citizens, civic groups, and political actors to petition against the proposed legislation, which critics say could alter the constitution and weaken democratic safeguards. So opposition figures and critics and civic organizations in Zimbabwe, they reckon that this bill is a significant blow to the democratic processes, principles, practices, and development in Zimbabwe. Government argues that constitutional amendments are necessary for stability and continuity, Timber said. Zimbabweans are asking a simple question: continuity of what? That's what Timber says. The signature drive will be conducted nationwide through community engagements in partnership with civic organizations. There we are. Recently, on the Kwelu Report, 2 days ago, we featured an interview with leading constitutional law expert, Professor Lumumba, who is also leader of the National Constitutional Assembly, where he was saying they are ready in their context and in their quota to fight to the end this bill, where Dr. Maduk also emphasized that as the opposition, they are working behind the scenes to launch and initiate a collective fight against Constitution Amendment Bill number 3. Now we go to the Gambia, still in Africa, where the former Gambia Press Union leaders have condemned a new media bill or a new media policies, which they've called a regression. Former presidents of the Gambia Press Union have condemned two new draft media policies, warning that they mimic the repressive tactics of the Jammeh era and undermine the existing Independent Media Council. Of course, Yahya Jammeh was the former Zambian president. The proposed National Press Accreditation Policy and Broadcasting and Online Content Regulations of 2025 aim to introduce state-controlled registration and security vetting, which the veteran journalists argue threaten the constitutional right to a free press. We write as journalists who stood firm when the cost of speaking out was harassment, intimidation, exile, imprisonment, and for our foreign colleagues, friend and former GPU president Deida Haidara, death itself, the former GPU leaders stated. So that's the situation there in Gambia. Journalists and activists fighting against new media policies that they call are repressive and retrogressive. Now, going back to Zimbabwe, where the government has rolled out a cancer cardiac care machines, where they've rolled out a cancer cardiac care machines program in public hospital. Of course, let me repeat this. The government of Zimbabwe has rolled out a cancer and cardiac care machines program procurement or a procurement program in public hospitals in Zimbabwe. I'm sure this will be good news for Zimbabweans. Of course, we know that the public hospitals have been hardly, and I must say hardly equipped, lacking most of the basic and most essential equipment to cater for the citizens. This is a welcome development, with Zimbabwe's Minister of Health, Douglas Mombeshora, announcing a major health care overhaul, utilizing Yuga tax revenue to procure MRIs, CT therapy equipment facilities. The initiative targets central and provincial hospitals, aiming to address the long-standing deficit in cancer treatment and cardiac care. Now, to quote the minister, Trauma Center Borodo is working with Parinatwa to do heart surgery. So it's possible. And we want to encourage you, the specialists, to come and do such things. So Mombeshora was speaking, or he was addressing Zimbabweans in the diaspora, in the UK, to be more specific. So the minister acknowledged that public health infrastructure in Zimbabwe had suffered from outdated equipment, but noted that the sugar tax, or the tax on sugar, had sweetened beverages. Sorry, the sugar tax on sugar, sweetened beverages, has changed the fiscal landscape, enabling the procurement of new equipment. Of course, I'm sure we should clap hands there. For at least we see something being done that's very meaningful, very reasonable, that shows responsibility and accountability on the government, using the sugar tax to procure equipment for Zimbabwe's public hospitals. What do you think about this latest development, action and act by the Zimbabwean government? Personally, I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Now, we go to our last story of the day. If you are just joining us, thank you very much for joining us on the Kwedu Report. Our last story. Okay, this way. before we go to our last story, let's play the video from the German defense minister, who is telling Donald Trump
We are ready to
what he
ensure
doesn't
safe
want to hear. The German defense minister. Okay, right. Oh, sorry about that. Let's start it again.
We are ready to ensure safe passage through the Straits of Hormuz diplomatically. We are ready to ensure safe passage through the Straits of Hormuz diplomatically. However, there will be no military participation. We have a situation which we did not provoke, which we don't cause at all. This war started without any consultations before.
Let's pause there. The German defense minister is saying, we are ready to help open the Strait of Hormuz, but there will be no military operation. It is very important to take note of that. He emphasized there will be no military operation. He gives a reason. He doesn't just say there will be no military operation. He gives a reason. Let's hear his reason there.
At all. This war started without any consultations before. We are ready to ensure safe passage through the Straits of Hormuz diplomatically. However, there will be no military participation. We have a situation which we did not provoke, which we don't cause at all. This war started without any consultations before.
So the German defense minister said, we are ready to facilitate or to have the Strait of Hormuz open diplomatically. What does that mean to you? I'm sure the way I see it, this is a slap in the face for Donald Trump. Why? When they say diplomatically, this actually points to talks with the Iranian regime, which Donald Trump and Israel are fighting. Now, these are American allies. These are NATO members of NATO, who are saying they want to negotiate with a nation that their biggest ally, America, are fighting. So the German defense minister goes on to say, we are not going to be involved into a war that we did not start. So it remains to be seen how Donald Trump will he proceed with this war, especially with his main allies from NATO expressing disappointment and telling him in no uncertain terms that they do not support this war and they will not be part of this war. We will just be watching as the story develops further. Now we go to our last story of the day. If you are just joining us on the Kwedu Report, thank you very much for joining us tonight, where we have been looking at the main news headlines, stories that make headlines from around the globe, from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from the Americas, here also in Australia. We delve into those stories where we try to provide some expert commentary and analysis. We also want to hear your opinions on these matters. You can hit the chat box and tell us what you think. Now, on the Kwedu Report tonight, we conclude by giving you a story all the way from South Africa, where South African musician Label M is suing Zambian Lenmo Jonasi for, are you ready for this? He is suing him for 330 million rand, a mouth-watering, a staggering 330 million rand. For a Lion King joke, for making a joke. Lenmo Jonasi is a comedian, so Label M is suing Lenmo Jonasi for 330 million. Okay, let's get the details first. Then you can give me your opinions. You can tell me what you think. Now, South African composer Label M has filed a 330 million rand lawsuit against Zimbabwean comedian over a joke made about the iconic Nans Ingonyama chant from The Lion King. Label claims that the joke trivializes and misrepresents a phrase deeply rooted in Zulu culture, causing damage to his brand and potential business earnings. The lawsuit alleges Jonas' joke has defamed Label M's character and caused significant financial loss. This case raises broader questions about the boundaries of comedy and satire, particularly when they intersect with cultural heritage and intellectual property, says the report. Now, the outcome could set a precedent for future cases involving cultural commentary and celebrity. Label M's emotional toll is palpable as he seeks to protect his cultural contribution and artistic truth. Well, what do you think about this? Label M suing Lenmo Jonasi for a staggering 330 million rand. Of course, Lenmo Jonasi is a Zimbabwean comedian based in the United States of America. What do you think about this? Do you think comedians should be sued for jokes that they make, like these ones? Of course, recently in the US, we have seen cases like this making headlines, with the most notable one of Trevor Noah, when he made a joke about US President Donald Trump, and Trump threatened to sue him. But of course, in the US, comedy is protected by the US Constitution. It remains to be seen what the outcome of this mouth-watering case or a lawsuit would be. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a very long night here on the Kwedu Report. We thank you very much. We value your support. Until we meet again in the next edition of the Kwedu Report, please remember to share the link, like our page on Instagram, on Facebook, on X, on TikTok, and of course on YouTube. You can also read all the latest news on our website, www.helcommedia.com. Till we meet again in the next edition of the Kwedu Report, it's 10:46 p.m. in Sydney. You have a good night or a good morning or a good afternoon, wherever you are. Take care.